Dr. Rajveer Singh ji, are you listening?
No.
डॉक्टर राजवीर सिंह जी, आपको आवाज आ रही है?
हाँ, आ रही है सर, आ रही है।
हाँ, मैं सर आपसे ये रिक्वेस्ट कर रहा था कि आपकी क्या ओपिनियन है कॉन्फ्रेंस को लेके, ऑनलाइन या ऑफलाइन, हमें क्या प्लान करना चाहिए, क्योंकि एक जनरल कंसेंसस बने, उसी हिसाब से हम लोग आगे प्लान करेंगे, ये माइंड में है।
सर, फिजिकल डिस्टेंसिंग एंड सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग के तहत ऑफलाइन कॉन्फ्रेंस होनी चाहिए, जैसा कि एग्जाम भी चल रहा है सारा, और क्लास भी स्टार्ट हो गई है, और पार्टियां भी चल रही हैं, सब कुछ, ट्रेन भी चल रही हैं और बसें भी चल रही हैं। तो हमारी कॉन्फ्रेंस ऐसा नहीं है कि बहुत ज्यादा भीड़ हो जाएगी और उसको हम कंट्रोल नहीं कर पाएंगे और उसको जो है मैनेज नहीं कर पाएंगे, ऐसा नहीं है। हम उसको सोशल डिस्टेंस के हिसाब से मैनेज कर सकते हैं और बहुत अच्छी कॉन्फ्रेंस हो सकती है, जैसा कि पिछले सालों से होता चला रहा है, तो इस साल भी हो जाएगी। तो मेरा विचार यही है सर, ऑफलाइन ऑर्गेनाइज करिए आप जनवरी फरवरी में कभी, तो ठीक रहेगा।
This is one opinion. Actually, sir, all opinions will be put before executive committee, and they will be deciding exactly what will have to be happen. Dolly Singh, you have joined us. Dolly Singh, our executive committee member, and representing all the research scholars across India. Dolly Singh, what is your opinion on this issue? That should we go for online or offline conference? Dolly Singh, unmute yourself.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning.
Sir, you are talking about this upcoming conference of December.
Exactly.
Yes, sir. As this COVID-19 is running, so I think online conduction is, we should go for the online conduction of this conference.
ठीक है, गुड। डॉक्टर अंगेज सिंह जी, हाँ प्लीज डॉली बोलो।
Yes, sir.
डॉक्टर अंगेज
Sir, date is decided. Sir, we got the browser. That date is already decided for the 3 days. So we will get the chance for the full presentation now of our paper.
Why not? Why you are always thinking.
So sir, from last 3 yes sir, from last 3 years I am attending this conference and I am presenting my paper also. So that's why sir, I am confirming once again, because in online sir, at is limited time is conducted as in webinar. So sir, that's why I am confirming.
Actually, Dolly, you will not be provided any chance, but you have to provide the chance to others. The conference has to be organized by you only.
Okay, yes, we are organizer now.
Yeah,
Yes,
you are organizer. You are the organizer. You can not
sir.
discuss like this. You have to manage everything. डॉक्टर अंगेज सिंह जी, नमस्कार।
नमस्कार डॉक्टर साहब, कैसे हैं आप?
बस मैं अच्छा हूँ भाई साहब, और अच्छे हो गए
अच्छे, बिल्कुल। सर
ये सोच रहे हैं कि हम
गुड मॉर्निंग
मॉर्निंग सर,
या फिजिकली या पर्सनल लेवल पे जो मैन टू मैन मुलाकात कब हो, ये लंबा हो गया है।
बहुत जल्दी, जब तक वैक्सीनाइजेशन नहीं होगा तो थोड़ा इम्पॉसिबल है, लेकिन शॉर्ट गैदरिंग हम कर सकते हैं। ऑफलाइन ऑनलाइन दोनों मोड पे कॉन्फ्रेंस किया जा सकता है। तो साहब कुछ लोग जा सकते हैं सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग या नॉर्म्स को फॉलो करते हुए। एक मीटिंग अगर इसी की एक बार आ जाए, सब में डिसाइड कर दे, वेन्यू वगैरह और जो भी है डिसाइड हो जाए सर।
अंग्रेज भाई मीटिंग जो है वो 30 तारीख की प्लान कर रहे हैं।
ठीक है, नो प्रॉब्लम डॉक्टर साहब।
30 नवंबर की। हाँ, उसमें इन चीजों को तय कर लेंगे और 2-3 दिन बाद फिर डिस्प्ले कर देंगे, जो फाइनल करेंगे हम लोग।
ठीक।
भाई अध्यक्ष साहब से, चौबे जी से, बाकी सभी लोगों से बात हो गई है, सीनियर लोगों से।
चलो बहुत अच्छा है, बहुत अच्छा। मेरी भी काफी दिन से बात नहीं हो पाई ना, मैं भी बिजी था, हरियाणा ही हूँ दरअसल में फिलहाल ना।
अच्छा हरियाणा, ओके।
हाँ, अभी जर्मनी में, तो मैं चल सुन लेता हूँ, फिर गाड़ी में मैं वो करके चलता।
आप रिप्रेजेंट भी हरियाणा कोई कर रहे हैं, कोई प्रॉब्लम?
हाँ, हरियाणा में, फिर यहाँ सारा फिर अपने फील्ड में तो रहना ही पड़ता है ना।
कमाल है, क्यों नहीं रहना पड़ेगा। डॉक्टर दिनेश कुमार जी, नमस्कार। नमस्कार।
महाराष्ट्र में भी कोई सीरियसनेस नहीं है, सारे फ्री है।
हाँ, सब जगह ऐसा ही हो गया है काफी हद तक चीजें।
अब टेंशन नहीं रहा सर, 91% अपना रिकवरी रेट हो गया।
नमस्कार सभी को।
मैडम इंदु जी नमस्कार। नमस्कार जी, नमस्कार।
नमस्कार नमस्कार
तो मैडम नमस्कार।
नमस्कार सर।
इंदु जी, 30 तारीख को हम लोग ईसी की मीटिंग प्लान कर रहे हैं। मैं आज कोशिश कर रहा हूँ नोटिफाई कर दूं।
जी 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 जी
30 की शाम को 4:30 बजे।
ठीक है ठीक है ठीक।
उसमें जो इश्यूज हैं हमारे कॉन्फ्रेंस को लेके, पब्लिकेशंस को लेके, कुछ रजिस्ट्रेशन को लेके, कुछ अकाउंट्स को लेके, उन पर कुछ बात कर, कुछ तय कर देंगे। माइंड में यह है।
ठीक है ठीक है ठीक
होना चाहिए।
ओके ओके
बाकी नोटिफाई मैं आज कर लूंगा मोस्ट पॉसिबल शाम तक ना दिया
ठीक
जाए।
ठीक ठीक।
अब हम देख रहे हैं कि हमारे जो साहब हैं वो ज्वाइन करें तो मैं आगे बढ़ूं।
जी 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 वो अभी जुड़े हैं।
जिनका लेक्चर होना है रविंद्र रैना साहब का, अभी तक शायद जुड़े नहीं हैं।
हाँ रैना साहब अभी नहीं जुड़े।
और रैना साहब की प्रॉब्लम ये थी कि यहाँ से वहाँ का जो टाइम डिफरेंस है वो करीब 3.5 घंटे का है।
जी
तो उनके पास हो सकता है इस समय 7 या 8 बजे हो, 8 के आसपास बजा होगा इस समय।
जी 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 जी
ताकि मैं कोशिश करूंगा टाइम से आ जाऊँ। जी आप ही से स्टार्ट होगा प्रोग्राम। दिनेश भाई माइक ऑन करो अपना, अनम्यूट कीजिए अपने आप को।
जी भैया सादर प्रणाम।
प्रणाम प्रणाम सदा प्रणाम भाई, सदा प्रणाम। अच्छे हैं सब?
उत्तर हाँ, आपका आशीर्वाद है बड़े भैया। यह है कि आप लोग जो है ना, जब ये ऊनी कपड़े पहने हो तो लगता है उत्तर प्रदेश में सर्दियाँ शुरू हो गई हैं।
भाई साहब मजे ले रहे हो। महाराष्ट्र वाले लोग, गुजरात वाले लोग ये सब एंजॉय कर रहे हैं हीट का पूरा, और हमें ठंड में डाल रखा है हम लोगों ने।
इनके सर कोरोना
एंजॉय
हीट
तो
ज्यादा
सर्दियों का होता है
यार,
गर्मियों का
गुजरात में
कहाँ।
कोरोना हीट ज्यादा है।
ओहो अच्छा अच्छा।
अभी आप देखो ना, इनके कर्फ्यू लग रहा है दोबारा से अहमदाबाद में। हमारे तो
कर्फ्यू
काफी
रहता
चिल्ड है सर पंजाब में।
नहीं यहाँ भी
जी जी देखिए, मनोज जी फुल स्वेटर पहने हुए हैं
नमस्कार।
अपने आगरा से। नमस्कार मनोज भाई।
सर नमस्कार।
नमस्कार
जी।
प्रेम सिंह जी, नमस्कार भाई, नमस्कार। ठीक है भाई प्रेम सिंह जी?
हाँ जी आशीर्वाद।
थैंक यू।
आज दीपक जी देखिए हमारे बिल्कुल वो पहने हुए हैं, सैलार साहब हाफ टी शर्ट, देखिए हाथ ऊपर करे थे।
वही बता रहा हूँ सर, मुंबई का हाल।
बहुत गर्मी है,
आती नहीं है
30-35 डिग्री सेंटीग्रेड टेम्परेचर।
सर सेलर सर नमस्कार।
नमस्कार सर जी,
नमस्कार नमस्कार नमस्कार।
सभी को
बॉम्बे कब बुला
नमस्कार।
रहे हैं? बॉम्बे बुला लीजिए सर अब तो।
बॉम्बे खुला है सर, आ जाइए।
अब शेला साहब कह रहे हैं कि आ सकते हो तो आ जाओ।
अभी तो
अच्छा।
ट्रेन भी शुरू हो गई है।
कहे आ सकते हो तो आ जाओ।
नहीं
आप तो
आ
ट्रेन भी
जाएंगे,
शुरू हो गई
ट्रेन
है।
ब्रेन तो सब चालू हो जाएगी।
मनोज
सब
भाई,
चालू हो गया सर।
मनोज भाई अभी जाना उचित नहीं है, वहाँ ड्रग्स के मामले बहुत मिल रहे हैं।
कोई दिक्कत नहीं है।
अभी तो कोई भी जा रहा है उसको पकड़ ले रहे हैं वो।
अभी तो छोटे छोटे चूहे ही मिले सर।
हाँ।
ನೀವು ಹೋಗುವಾಗ
ये
ಅದೇ
गैलेक्सी के
ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಲಿಸ್ಟ್ ಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ, ಸೈನ್ ಮಾಡಿಸಿಲ್ಲ. ಸರಿ ರಂಗ 12 ಬೆಲ್ ಹಾಕ್ಬೇಕು ನೋಡಿ.
हिंदू दीदी हैं क्या? बीच में अभी दिखी थी।
है इंदु जी, है इंदु जी।
अरे आप अपना फेस तो दिखाओ दीदी, दिवाली के बाद।
दिवाली के बाद कुछ खास नहीं हुआ है।
लक्ष्मी पूजन के बाद अगर ट्रेजरार का फेस नहीं दिखे तो अच्छा नहीं लगेगा ना।
रोजगार का फेस खराब हो गया है, फिलहाल सही होने में अभी टाइम लगेगा।
लेकिन फेस देखना है कि ड्रेस देखना है?
नहीं अभी दोनों ट्रेजरार, दोनों फेस से पता लग जाएगा ट्रेजरार के पास कितना धन आया। अभी दिसंबर आने वाला है भैया।
इस समय कोई धन नहीं है, सब परेशान है। अभी सही हो जाए थोड़ा सा
इकोनॉमी डाउन।
हो रहा है मैडम, हो रहा है, ठीक हो रहा है। दिसंबर तक सब ठीक हो जाएगा।
मेरा मूल कारण ये था आपको देखने का, क्योंकि आपका अभी जन्मदिन निकल के चुका है, तो आपको रिलेटेड हैप्पी बर्थडे है ना, आइएगा। उसके बाद ये अभी हो रहा है।
तोमार सर नजर नहीं आ रहे हैं, उनका भी बर्थडे हो गया।
हाँ
उनका
तोमर
बर्थडे हो गया।
तोमर साहब को भी देख रहा हूँ मैं।
गुड मॉर्निंग सर, चौबे सर।
हाँ गुड मॉर्निंग, नमस्कार सब लोगों को।
नमस्कार सर।
नमस्कार नमस्कार
सर गुड मॉर्निंग एवरीवन।
बंद कर दो, चौबे सर आए हैं।
To everyone.
चौबे सर नमस्कार।
नमस्कार नमस्कार सबको।
सर दीपावली उपरांत हम सब मिल रहे हैं।
हाँ बहुत अच्छा है, आपने उस समय कहा था कि दीपावली के एक दिन तो बनता है कि भाई ब्रेक लें।
हाँ
बाकी
मुझे
तो
भी
आपका
लग रहा
अभी
था।
हर वीक चल रहा है।
जी हाँ जी हाँ जी हाँ जी
पिता के साथ काम चल रहा है, सहयोग भी सबका मिल रहा है आपको।
हाँ जी सभी का मिल रहा है, बिल्कुल सभी का मिल रहा है, कहीं कोई इवेंट बट नहीं है, सभी लोग पूरी कलेक्टिव टीम हमारी पूरी साथ खड़ी है। जी हम दुबे सर को नमस्कार। दुबे सर अनम्यूट कर लीजिए सर माइक अपना। हाँ
हाँ
सर जी नमस्कार।
नमस्कार दिनेश कुमार जी, सेक्रेटरी को नमस्कार, और लक्ष्मी के भंडार जिसके पास हो उनको जन्मदिन की शुभकामनाएं और उनको ढेरों शुभकामनाएं नए वर्ष की
अच्छा
भी।
हाँ इस बीच में जन्मदिन रहे हैं भाई, सभी को बहुत बहुत बधाइयाँ शुभकामनाएं। जिनका जन्मदिन था तो था, इंदु जी का था, सभी को बधाई बहुत बहुत।
शैलाज जी को भी नमस्कार पहुंचे, चौबे सर को प्रणाम पहुंचे। प्रणाम सर। भाभी कैसी हैं सर?
हाँ अच्छी हैं
सर। हमारे परिवार की ओर से भाभी को ढेरों।
आप सब लोगों को भी हमारी ओर से, सभी
सर।
सदस्यों को। वो तो संध्या के मैसेज पढ़ के सुनाती रहती हैं।
अरे वाह सर, इन लोगों का तो आपस में है ना। हाँ
गोवर्धन में जो उन्होंने कोई चित्र भेजा था तो बोले ऐसा, मैंने कहा बुंदेलखंड में ऐसे ही मनाई जाती है।
हाँ
नहीं है तो यहाँ मतलब ब्रिज में जो है वो सब्जियों का इकट्ठा करके कुछ बनाते हैं अन्नकूट। हमने कहा हमारे यहाँ तो पकवान बनते हैं भाई, चारों तरफ रखे जाते हैं।
हाँ बिल्कुल सर, बिल्कुल सर।
सर चौबे सर, प्रोफेसर रेना will be joining within 15 minutes.
Okay.
So should we start सरस्वती वंदना and the initial startups?
हमारे ख्याल से 11:57 तो हो गया है।
हम
स्टार्ट कर सकते हैं। कुछ बातें जो अभी कर रहे हैं वो बाद में करेंगे। अगर वो ज्वाइन कर लेते हैं
नहीं 15 मिनट में मुझे बात की है अभी, मेरे से उनका फोन आया कि उन्हें 15 मिनट लगा है। ठीक।
हाँ तो
स्टार्ट कर सकते हैं।
करीब करीब 12 होने वाला है।
हाँ जी आई थिंक
11:57 लिख रहा है।
हाँ ये ठीक रहेगा, बाद में डिले नहीं होता है।
हाँ जी
टाइमली हो जाएगा।
ये मंदिर के ऊपर वाली
उसके बाद भी आपके कुछ और जो
ये भी रख दो सब
के अलावा धन्यवाद, कुछ बायोडाटा वगैरह पढ़ा जाता है वो पढ़ लीजिए।
वो पढ़ लेते हैं। हाँ ठीक बात ऐसा कर लेते हैं, ऐसा Professor P.K. Agrawal sir, should we start?
Yes sir, I think we have to start. I was listening. We are already late, I think.
Okay.
I already told you my problem also. I have to go for a marriage.
Professor, but just after Saraswati Vandana, you will be giving the remark, and I will be so just I am closing the mic of all. It would be better. Okay, Honorable Professor P.K. Chaubey sir, Honorable Vice President, Honorable former President of Indian Economic Association, the President of Indian Economic Association, Professor Ghanshyam Singh in absentia, Professor Pramod Kumar Agrawal sahab, Honorable Vice President of Indian Economic Association, Honorable Treasurer Madam Dr. Indu Vashni ji, Professor K.N. Bhatt sahab, who is in USA now, and in US this time is I think it is 2:30 or 3 a.m. He will be joining, but little bit late. Here, I discussed him. Honorable Nish Mohan Dubey sir, Honorable EC members from Madhya Pradesh, Honorable Dr. Dinesh Kumar, Professor P.K. Nath Saab, Honorable Deepak Sheila ji, our EC member from Maharashtra, who will be delivering the welcome address today and contributing much more. All the EC members, all the members, including Professor Dr. Angrej Singh Rana ji and Dr. Dole Singh. There are a number of EC members. Dr. Mothesh ji is there. All the EC members, all the learned scholars, all the authorities in the subject, all the members of the executive committee, all the members of advisory board, as well as all the members who are still not the member of IEA. They are joining us. They have joined us on YouTube also. Just to start with, I am starting the program with Ma Saraswati Vandana. Then after that, we will be starting as usual, as we start normally. I am virtually playing Ma Saraswati Vandana to get the blessings of Saraswati. Just wait. Thanks to all for listening this blissful Saraswati Vandana. All the learned scholars of the nation, I would like to submit that we are holding this 17th web series of Indian Economic Association. In this web series today, Professor Ravindra Reina from Northwest University, South Africa, will be delivering his lecture on the multi-dimensional aspects of economy, global economy during COVID-19. No doubt he will be joining very shortly. Just to start the program, I would like to request Professor Pramod Kumar Agarwal Sahab, Honorable Vice President of Indian Economic Association, for his presidential remark at this outset of this webinar of web series of Indian Economic Association. I would request again Professor P.K. Agarwal Sahab for the presidential remark. Thanks, over to you.
Thank you, sir. You have registered me because I have to, sorry, I have to, in between, I have to depart for a marriage function, and that is why they have in advance asked about the presidential remarks without listening Dr. Rena. But we all are facing this COVID-19, and since then the outbreak of the COVID-19, we all know it has spread almost more than 200 countries, and even all the states of the US as well as in Asian countries. It started from the China, and at a large scale still it is prolonging in India and in northern state as well as in Maharashtra. We are finding it is increasing at an alarming rate. Now we all know globally, if you look out, this COVID-19 has negatively affected the economic growth beyond anything experienced since in the present period. If you look out, we all know, we are the economists, and estimates indicate that this COVID-19 has reduced the global economic growth to an annual rate of negatively, you say, minus 4.5 to 6% during this existing 2020 period, with a partial recovery of rate of 2.5% to 5% expected in March 2021. But you see, look out the infections, or you say virus of the COVID-19 cases. If you again look out the Europe, and they are planning the lockdowns and the curfews, and even in my state, it has been planned in 4 of the districts will be declared lockdown or curfew at the night time. So various developing countries during this November or October month onward renewed the calls for the lockdown due to the spread of the risk of the COVID-19. And at the same time, governments of the different countries in the European as well as the US economies as well as in India doing their best effort for the fastest recovery. Now, if you look out the economic fallout of the COVID-19, and we all know there is a widespread of the unemployment, just like it is worse than the Great Depression of 1930s. And high levels of debt among the developing countries have already emerged and found. And human cost in terms of the lives lost will permanently affect the global economic growth, in addition to the cost of rising levels of poverty, lives and careers derailed, and increased social unrest. And some of the estimates indicate that 100 to 120 million people globally could enter into the extreme poverty as a result of the contraction in the global size of the global economic downturn. Now, it means the COVID-19 has spread with an alarming rate, infecting millions of people, bringing economic activity to the standstill as countries impose tight restrictions on the movement from one place to other, or rather it has been halted at the larger scale due to the virus of spread of the COVID-19. As the health and the human toll grows, The damage is already evident and it represents the largest economic shock the world has experienced in. I think in coming decades, it will very difficult for the country to recover it. Now, if you look out the COVID-19 crisis, it highlights the urgent need, or rather you can say action, or rather you can say there is a need of to monitor the impact of the COVID-19 on the health and the economic consequences and vulnerable populations, especially the people living below the poverty lines. The governments have to make out such policies so that there will be a fastest recovery in the after the COVID-19. And we are looking in the people who are engaged and working in the IT sector and management people, they are exploited. And instead of getting any promotion or increment, rather instead of working for 10 hours, 8 to 10 hours, they are working 16 to 18 hours with the same salaries. Now that type of the bad impact has come after the COVID-19. Now many of the countries are facing daunting tasks which are very critical, especially for the health systems. Even we are exposed, especially in India, what type of the facilities in health we are available, they are not up to the mark. The government need to address these challenges posed by the COVID-19, and they have to bring out the such type of the changing reforms which will support the strong and sustainable growth in the country as well as throughout the world, same type of the crisis. And they have to sometimes they have to plan out some part of the GDP must be kept for the revival of the sufferers after the COVID-19. I think before listening Dr. Rana, I have no right to comment on their lectures, but I have just given my general view what type of the global economic crisis has emerged after the COVID-19. I hope, I think Professor Rana has already joined, and I try to listen some part of the Professor Rana. I hope whatever the issues are emerging, they will highlight and suggest some amicable possible solutions so that we will send their policy implication to the policy makers so that we can curb and sustain the economic growth in the country. Thank you, Professor Dinesh ji, and welcome Professor Vinder Rana ji. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Vice President Sahab, Professor P.K. Agrawal. I welcome.
Good morning, Professor.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. I welcome Professor Ravindra Rana, the Honorable key speaker, chief guest of the day, who will be delivering the lecture on COVID-19 global pandemic. I welcome Professor A.K. Tomar, sir, the Honorable key authority of Indian Economic Association, as well as the chief program coordinator of.
Welcome me also.
Why not? I'm not looking your name. Your name is mentioning like Kunj Chandra. I welcome Kunj Chandra Sahab, and I welcome all the dignitaries who have joined this program on this Zoom app as well as on YouTube.
Dinesh Kumar Kalia, Ravinder Rana Mottu, Takle. Dinesh Kumar Kalu, Dinesh Kumar,
Don't abuse, boys. Don't abuse.
Dinesh Kumar Kalu, Dinesh Kumar Kalu,
Boys, be in limit, bro.
Dinesh Kumar
सर मैं अयान बोल रहा हूँ, ये अजय तोमर सर है, इन्हीं ने टेलीग्राम पे लिंक वायरल की है, अजय तोमर सर ने सर.
कोई बात नहीं, there is no problem. It is in my hand. I will manage that. It's that.
No sir, I am saying who sent it link.
भाई कोई गाली वाली मत दो भाई सर को.
I will decide.
Okay, all right. Just changing the setting. Okay, now I think I should start the program.
Yes.
If there is any problem, I will remove one, 2, 3 more. There is no problem. Okay. Now I welcome all the authorities of Indian Economic Association online on Zoom app as well as on YouTube. I request Dr. Deepak Shela. Dr. Deepak Shela is coming from Maharashtra. He is our executive committee member from Maharashtra. He is a senior executive committee member. I request Dr. Deepak Shela Sahab for giving the welcome address to Dr. Ravindra Rana, who is the chief guest, who is the key authority of the day today. It's over to Dr. Deepak Shela ji.
Good morning,
जय
everybody.
महाराष्ट्र, जय शिवाजी, जय भवानी.
Good morning, everybody. Suswagatam, Swagatam. I'm very happy today to introduce our chief guest as well as our respectable speaker, Professor Dr. Ravindra Rena. Dr. Ravindra Rena is a profound academician and distinguished scholar in economics, writer, editor, advisor, and public intellectual with over 20 years of teaching and research experience in Asia Pacific, Africa, and European countries. He has been an independent consultant and training expert. Professor Rena is currently working as Professor of Economics and Internationalization Project Leader at the NWU Business School, Northwest University, South Africa. He also serves as an adjunct professor of economics for master's and doctorate program at Monarch Business School, Monarch University, Switzerland. Previously, he worked as a professor of economics at the Department of Economics, University of the Western Cape, South Africa. He also served as professor and a coordinator, Joint African Masters Program, Herald Graduate School of Business at Namibia University of the Science and Technology. He also worked as the head of economics, Department of Business Studies, the Papua New Guinea University of Technology, Papua New Guinea. Professor Rena earned his PhD from the Department of Economics, Usmania University, Hyderabad, India, with the achievement of university gold medals. He got the prestigious award of the Best Researcher 2011 from Namibia University of Science and Technology, and also the recipients of the esteemed award Man of the Year 2012, which was bestowed upon him by the American Biographic Institute, USA, based on his extraordinary research contributions. American Historical Society, USA, has been enlisted his profile in the World Who International. He served as the chairman of the panel of judges for economics of the Global Undergraduate UA Award based in Dublin, Ireland, UK. He wrote 10 books and published more than 130 articles in reputed national and international peer-reviewed journals. Besides, he published more than 150 articles in various newspapers and magazines. He, the founding editor-in-chief of the International Journal, Education, Economics and Development, and associate editor of African Journal of Science, Technology, Innovation and Development. He has been a keynote speaker for various national and international conferences in Europe, Africa, America, and Asian countries. As of October 2020, his author rank is 5,500 out of 5,33,000 of Social Science Research Network. He has also been an external examiner, moderator for Masters and PhD of different universities of Africa, Europe, Asia, America, and Australia. He traveled to over 40 countries in the world. I'm very happy that such great personality we got today as our main speaker. Thank you, Dr. Dinesh Kumar. Dr. Dinesh Kumar.
Sure. Thank you, Professor Deepak Chela Saab, for introducing and giving the welcome address to our honorable key authority of the day. Today, Professor Ravindra Rena Saab. I along with Professor Deepak Shera, I, with full Indian Economic Association, with Executive Council members, as well as the members of advisory body, welcome on my behalf and on behalf of the association, Professor Ravindra Sahab and this association in this web series today. Although we all are very much aware that Professor Rina is cooperating, is contributing in our webinar regularly on regular basis, today his role is much different. Before requesting Professor Rina, I would like to mention here that there were some elements who were not allowed to be entered, but they entered by any cost in this meeting. And now, right now, I have locked the meeting and locked the chat box. Therefore, I think there will be no disturbances. If there is any disturbance from any side, I have no other option to remove the person. With this request, there is no in between. I have to remove only. I request the key authority, the key person of the day today, Professor Ravindra Sahab, to start his deliberation in this Indian Economic Association web series. It is the 17th web series, and it's over to you, sir, Professor Ravindra Sahab. One thing I would like to add that out of these 17 web series, this is the first key speaker who is speaking from out of India, basically. He is not a foreigner, he is purely he's an Indian person, but he is speaking from out of India. And our managing editor, who is in the USA today, nowadays, he will also be joining us. So we are connecting us today. There are two different authorities, one from South Africa as well as one from USA. So I request Professor Ravindra Sahab to start his deliberation. It's over to Ravindra sir.
Dinesh, thank you very much for the opportunity. Give me a couple of minutes. I just try to log on to the system. I'm using the phone currently. I'll be there with you in about 1 to 2 minutes time. Kindly bear with me.
No problem, no problem, no problem. I will discuss some issues in between.
Okay.
Because we are having almost a number of, Dr. Dushan Ji is there, Dr. Angad Singh is there. There are a number of PC persons available in this meeting right now. I would like to announce that we will be holding the meeting of Executive Committee on 30th November, 30th November at 4:30 p.m. I will be notifying it by 2 evening. आज शाम तक इसको notify कर लेंगे. And there are a number of issues related to the upcoming conference, publications, as well as registration accounts and some other issues as per the permission of the Honorable President will be discussed in the meeting. And we will be holding the meeting of Executive Committee of Indian Economic Association on 30 November 2020 at 4:30 p.m. This was the one information I can share in between the time given me by the Professor Rina. Other one is there are number of discussion before starting today's program, like offline conference or online conference. We can think over that. And one more submission, one more request to all the EC members as well as the member of advisory board is that please note down, please have at least 2 key authorities, 2 big persons, to name of the big persons who can be called, who can be requested in the upcoming conference in different capacities. I will be writing it on the notification also, so that each of us can have at least 1 or 2 big authorities, 1 or 2 big persons who can be requested to come and deliver his deliberation in the different capacities in upcoming conferences. Upcoming conferences can be in online mode or can be in offline mode. That will finally be decided by the executive committee. Professor Ravindra, when you will be ready, you please intervene me.
Yes, sir. Sure.
Okay. Now it is my humble request to all of us that we have to go for the online conference. But is there any difference between online conference and this webinar, what we discuss on weekly basis? As far as my discussion is concerned, I have discussed this issue by some senior authorities. I'm not naming them here, But they suggest that the conference means meetings with all the authorities, meeting with all the persons. When meeting is the purpose in conference, if the meeting is not being done and the conference is being, we have to think on that way. That how can we go for that meeting issue? Okay. Now, how can we handle the issue of this conference? Because there are some other issues linked with the organization of the conference. The issues related to publication. If we are holding the online conference, publication has to be done right now. If we are postponing the conference in virtual in offline mode, suppose 1 month further or 2 months further, then the publication will also be moving further. So we have to think in that way, and we have to contribute. I will be writing, I will be notifying it by 2 evening. Therefore, we can have some concrete idea. And another submission is that as today there were some interventions or interruptions in between. So initially we started to share the Zoom link to each and everybody. Initially it was restricted. In between we started to get it done at each and every platform. I think we have to think on that also, because it is a national platform and no such things can be allowed on this platform. So I think we will not be, and from my side also, I will not be giving the Zoom link to each and everybody, just with the notifications. It will be provided through mails only to the concerned. That will be, I think, can be the one idea, because the one is registered can have some responsibility. If one is not registered, and he or she may not be given the registration link, that will be, I think, the better idea. What I can do in future, what I'm thinking, and what you are thinking, you can communicate me to upgrade, to improve the quality of delegations, quality of organizations also. And you all are equally responsible for the functioning of each and every functioning of Indian Economic Association. If you all are having any idea which can correct me, which can modify me, which can improve me, you all are always invited. You all are always welcome to write, to call, to discuss, to instruct me from any side. I'm always available for these suggestions, and every suggestion is welcome, no doubt. Now, I think Professor Ravindra, are you ready?
Yes, almost there, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, the computer is giving me a little bit of trouble, so but otherwise I will be there.
No problem, no problem, no problem.
I will use my phone. If not, just let me see maybe another minute or so.
No problem at all. No problem at all. I think COVID-19 is in its revival condition, revival position in some area of India itself, as we are living in National Capital Region, NCR. In Delhi, we are looking at very sharply, but in nearby area like Faridabad, Noida, Ghaziabad, Meerut even, and some other area nearby, it is reviving stage. At Meerut, I know that the number of COVID positive was coming around 80, 90 per day. Then it moved to 130, 140 per day. Now it is over 250, 245, 253 per day. So it means it is not moving towards the solution. Maybe, and we wish that we should be wrong, but it is. It seems to have the second wave of COVID-19, and if it is not stopped right now, if it not stopped on time, what steps were taken in March by the Honorable Prime Minister Modi Sahab. Now we have to think about that the problem has not been solved. Problem is there. We have to work. We have to cope up, and we have to get out the solution also within working the system. And we all are facing the problem with the offline classes. Almost all the state governments in India, they are wishing to open the schools, colleges, universities, and almost all the parents across states, they are thinking very minutely that what steps should be taken from their side. There is some dilemma between the policy as well in the mind of the parents, that should we go hand to hand or should we wait further. uh, I'm not sure that except NCR, the situation may be different, but in Gujarat, Ahmedabad, there is a situation is quite grim also. So COVID-19 or this pandemic has created a chaos, not only economics, not only economy, but the mental status of the people. What Professor Pradeep Kumar Nath was saying in the initial stage of this webinar today, that the mental status of all of us, of the students, of the families, of the parents, of the young and old persons, the mental status is also being affected. If during this situation we are able to sit and discuss the issue, it will definitely soothe the status of the mental uh, status of each and every person of the society. Our purpose of this web series now has been converted. It is being converted not only to discuss the academic discussion, but to provide the psychological support, but to provide the mental support. That discussion is on the solution side. Therefore, I think we have to keep that discussion on. If there is no discussion, we can go and the psychological treatment may be required from that point of view. Therefore, it is really the critical condition, and governments are doing their job. Academicians have to do their job also. Therefore, it is the need of the hour. Now, I would like to request Professor Ravindra Saab, what's the situation?
Yes, I'm just getting online. Actually, the system has got some technical reason. I restarted the system and getting there. Give me another minute or so, sir.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Now, no problem. Sudha Subramaniam, madam. I think she is liking to speak within 2-3 minutes. Please, it's over to Dr. Sudha Subramaniam, madam. Please help me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Actually, with respect to what you spoke about COVID, there were two things I want to ask. Firstly, you spoke about the conference. So when are we scheduling that and what are the possible topics? And even I would like to call one or two people. Secondly, you spoke about the COVID scenario, and our previous speaker also spoke about, certain global happenings with respect to, again, renewed lockdown being, which will be happening in several places. Now, with respect to the futuristic aspects of the current pandemic and the vaccination, etc. So, apart from all the global implications, economic implications, do you also feel that the affordability of the vaccine would result in a sort of discrimination between those who have got the vaccine and those who have not? Like, for example, like you have to enter and you need to show your proof that yes, I have been vaccinated, and this would create a different type of discrimination because we are speaking of so many people. So have we sort of, a method in which this will be distilled to the to the citizens of the world?
Exactly, Dr. Sudha Subramaniam, your apprehension, your observation is very notable. Then what the complications are coming, what the complications are in front of us, that when the vaccination will be there. I would like to request Professor P.K. Chaube sir to comment on the issue raised by Professor Sudha Subramaniam. Professor P.K. Chaube sir, would you like to respond? Dr. Sudha Subramaniam. Sir, please.
Intervention.
Sir.
Sorry. I didn't listen to her properly.
Well, sir, actually, one main thing I wanted to ask was, like, whether once the vaccinations start happening, this would result in a discrimination because of, affordability factor, also the time lag in giving the vaccine to everybody. So would this create a sort of discrimination between people who have received the vaccine and people who have not? And to what extent would such discrimination factors, impact the overall conduct of people's movement and economic happenings?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult issue. Administration has to resolve it. But I say discrimination, if it is in terms of equity, whosoever deserves and gets it, that is the equity. Not necessarily women or old people, but if there is a boy, who is suffering from it. So according to the need, I don't know if a medical practitioner will devise some mechanism, and that is what they ought to be doing, rather than others doing it. But they know the incidence, isn't it? Detailed incidence by age, by sex, by reason, isn't it? By state and
Dinesh ji,
variety of other things. So that
Dinesh ji, I will be there. I
because
think
supply will, in any case, is always scarce. And if the rationing has to be done, one method is pricing, which should not be adopted here. The other method is according to the requirement of the person, isn't it? Because it is question of life. And if you are in a lifeboat, when you have to decide, isn't it, whom it has to be what you call given, and the equity mode suggests that the people who deserve, there is always a case. Suppose somebody is just to die and he will definitely die and unnecessarily you give. So suppose there is a disaster and somebody is deep inside, isn't it, 50 feet below, and we say first we will dig that person, and the person who has larger chances of survival. So these are the issues which have to be considered. I think Pradeep is just, what you call, nodding his head, uh, believing that there is something like lifeboat ethics also, which has to be considered while you are talking of equity.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your kind observations. And Dr. Sudha Subramaniam, one question you asked about the consents, that are we going for online consents or offline consents?
Yes,
Actually, we all are still thinking to finalize the issue, and we will be having the meeting within a week. I think it is on 30th of November, and they will be finalizing it.
Moreover, sir, there is a need to totally redefine certain things, because in the context of the pandemic, so post December 2009, the world as we know has changed. So whatever are the economic paradigms, they too have undergone a vast shift. And so there is a need to rethink, reinvent, and reanalyze on so many grounds. So for example, even if you had your education planning till date in place, August till December 2019, but now we are envisaging a scenario where we say that yes, to achieve educational inclusion, that little poor young boy there who is out of the inclusion circle, he needs to have a mobile, he needs to have technological access. So we speaking of bridging this digital divide, and so therefore we need to redefine several achievements and several milestones or the futuristic planning with respect to the changed overall working scenario. So even with respect to remote working locations, now that the doors and the frontiers have opened out, so this could be some of the very key and relevant topics, as well as areas where the intelligentsia should come and brainstorm and come out with actual feasible solutions, whereby gradually what has to be achieved can be.
Exactly, we have to go for changes. The thinking also, directions also, we have to divert the way. I think the way we are teaching, the way we are thinking, the way we are behaving, that we can see the cultural issues, they will also be getting changed after this COVID. But at present, I think at present the issue is it is not ending rightly. It is taking time.
Yes,
I think if it takes around more 6 months or more than 6 months, it will be very difficult for all of us, all of the members of this globe. Therefore, this is the not only, it is not the case that it is over now. Now it is the revival is much more severe and much more implicating, much more problematic. Therefore, it is my concern that if it is second wave is there, then our kitty is almost empty. We have expanded a lot. After this situation, if we have to face the another wave, the situation will be much more grave. Professor P.K. Chaubey, sir, you are wishing to comment, please.
I will add an optimistic note,
sure.
Because what we saw day before yesterday, they said 9th million has been crossed. And from 8th million to 9th million, it took 22 days. And previously it took, 18 days or 13 days, something like, yes. So and if one takes in terms of percentage, then percentage growth will be much smaller. If you write absolute numbers, and then you shall be having fluctuations always. And if you moderate it with either weekly summation or weekly moving average, the situation will appear much better. So absolute number, those who want to have optimistic view, they will go for growth numbers or doubling time or something like that. Or but if you take absolute number, what you have to see is that the second mode or third mode or fourth mode, because fluctuation means there will be modes, and that mode is smaller than the larger one. So global mode is over, hopefully, and the local modes will keep on appearing again and again till it dies down. Naturally, those who are worried, and medical profession people should be more worried, so they see, and regional spurt is there, but this national or global spurt doesn't seem to be the case. For example, in Europe, say in UK, isn't it? There is in the Europe context, there is some spurt. Within a country, some regions, for example, Delhi has taken this spurt, or maybe in Germany, Hamburg. So there are places, there are regions where these small things are happening. But Sudha is right in the sense that since 1918, when our present economics knowledge was much different, this set was very small, and it has taken 100 years, same kind of situation is appearing. Before that, it was every couple of decades you had, say, plague before that. So it took hardly 20 years and there was a plague. But at this scale, where you say global scale, there were histories in 14th, 15th, 16th, and 18th, 19th century. But the 20th century, the whole world was not facing such a situation in terms of epidemic. There were epidemic of continental size or maybe national size, but not of the global size. But nevertheless, fatality, because whatever modern medicine and whatever awareness and the kind of good that for a few years we talked of Swachhata Abhiyan, and it had some impact. So people are now more aware, and despite challans which are being made in Delhi, isn't it? People compared to previous times are more careful, more vigilant. So I see from this perspective, and I see that there may be regional spurts, there may be local spurts, and there may be what you call in absolute number, these will appear. But if you do some statistical analysis, I think the cases are sliding down. So, and sometimes it also happens. For example, if you carefully read every day, say fatality or cases reported, what you will find in certain days, it was zero, because on those days it was not reported. Suppose Sunday, nothing gets reported and everything gets reported on Monday. So the number suddenly doubles. So some moderation you have to do for reporting also. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. And also, you would notice there are some very gray areas. Gray areas in the sense, like, at the start when this COVID outbreak happened, then all the migrant workers, I mean, there they were walking to their native places 15 days, 17 days, so many people dying on the way. Dharavi literally got emptied. And then now everybody's come back. And then you have this scenario where now you have only 17 cases, 20 cases. So don't you think there's a fear psychosis happening? And those gray areas where we don't know, okay, so Dharavi is bad, but still now cases are controlled. At one time we were speaking of, needing to have that cutoff and breaking the chain. So there is a lot of gray area, like in the sense that, for one thing, lack of proper planning also, and no phased, structured planning, like, okay, this is going to be a strategy, because this is a different type of war we are fighting. So we have to have a strategy. We don't have any strategy.
Yeah, that, I mean, I partly agree with you. And my own view was that our stringency measures were very high, and the trade-off between life and livelihood. And when the livelihood goes, isn't it, you fear for life and you ran away, isn't it? And the stringency of the country, whosoever agency has done it, they say 100%. So 100% compared to other countries, we were very stringent. The good result was the life was saved, but the bad result was the livelihood was lost, isn't it? And you all know that India was the country which has the severest recession. Minus 24%, no sizable country had it. Isn't it? Second comes UK, which had 20%, but all other countries around 8%, isn't it? And your Kaushik Basu is estimating 12% overall what you call decline in the GDP over the year, except Rangarajan and Srivastav, who at one point of time said, perhaps we might finish with somewhat positive, maybe 0.5% or something like over the year. But this whole scenario which is emerging before us doesn't say it. There were a couple of other things. I mean, on the measures itself, there was a lot of trade-off. As you said, Dharavi, where you hardly have what you call private space shared by 5 persons, isn't it? Hardly say 10 by 10 room and 3 persons sharing, and maybe by shift, isn't it? Sometimes they are sleeping by shift. Now they were spending a lot of time in the public space, and you close the public space and you made them to stay there. And the longer queue in the morning, I mean, for what you call, so that all created certain problems, and then the infection also rose. And the part of the reason that if you are ill, isn't it, and you don't have livelihood, and how long, I mean, that the so-called landlord or landlady, who was herself or himself a very poor woman, isn't it, earning a little pittance from, so how long, I mean, they could afford. And as a result, I mean, they also demanding and pushing them out.
Exactly. So
And
when you have economic strategy for slums, economic strategy for tribals, economic strategy for SC/ST, I mean, you have to have your strata-based economic strategies.
To begin with, it appears because we depended too much on medical experts. And medical experts, isn't it? And naturally, time was not enough. And they thought perhaps it will get over in half a month or maximum 1 month and so on. So, and naturally, you have to prospect. And nobody could be clairvoyant that how will it unfold. So, to begin with, and that is why stringency was very high, and they thought perhaps the whole world will pat us, that and maybe government of India gets a Nobel, something of that kind. So it didn't happen, but nevertheless, I mean, we, on fatality side, we were good, but on livelihood side, we were not good. So, and economists also, they do post-mortem. They are also not very clairvoyant. If that was the case, why should Great Depression take place? Why should recession take place in 2008-9? So they happen, and later on we analyze. So anyway, I mean, that is the part of the game. And we can well criticize, but when we were not ourselves in a great position to make the correct, what you call, choice of correct strategy. So let us take this with a pinch of salt rather than blaming, because everybody was fathoming in a deep water without knowing what to do. And to begin with, everybody, the medical side, they were, I mean, now you know, after 6 months, Dr. Guleria is not there. But for 5-6 days, isn't it? 10 days, 18 days, it was Dr. Guleria, Dr. Wali, all doctors were coming. And our media also, they play, I mean, according to their understanding. And their understanding is about life, not about livelihood. They have very poor understanding of livelihood. So only when the reverse migration started taking place, they highlighted the human side. But when you are having slow death, yeah, it doesn't. And as Amar Sen says, at one point of time, you do not have famine, but you have slow starvation. Because when famine strikes, when measures are taken. So when that reserve migration started taking place, measures were taken, not adequate, but nevertheless, when good measures were taken. But unless it becomes spectacular, isn't it? Unless it becomes spectacular, if I am weeping in my home, it doesn't matter you. If I am crying on road, perhaps you will come in something. So that is there, and that is how media also reacts, and they inform us and they inform the government. Please.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir, for your rich discussion in between. And thanks to Professor Zavin Zena to providing this time to get it discussed like this way.
Sorry, Dr. Raina, if I have exceeded.
No, not at all, sir.
We were making good use of the time you provided to us. Okay.
Now it's over to Professor Zavin Zena from South Africa. Sir, you please start your deliberation. It's over to you.
Australia? No?
Good afternoon.
South Africa.
South Africa.
South Africa.
Okay. I thought you were in Australia.
It is South Africa.
Okay, Rana.
Good afternoon, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen from India, across the globe. First of all, my humble apologies for the severe delay that I never anticipated because of the technological issues. I have to switch from 4 to 2 laptops, but finally I got back to the original one. So that is a delay, and I'm so sorry for that. And also, I thank our colleagues, Professor Chauviji and Dr. Sudhaji and Professor Dineshji to engage, to cover up those things. Without much delay, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank the Indian Economic Association, particularly for giving me this wonderful opportunity to share some of my views. And I also would like to thank personally the President of the Indian Economic Association, Honorable Professor Ghanshyam Singh, and the Honorable General Secretary, Professor Dinesh Kumar ji, and colleagues, Honorable Vice President Pramod ji, and Indu Varshini ji, and we got Tomar ji, we got all our colleagues from different corners of India representing 29 states of India as Executive Council members. And I would like to also thank the participants who are participating in this webinar from different parts of the world, and I appreciate your patience. So today's my discussion would be about the global pandemic one side and the global economy on the other side. And I would like to touch upon some of the important issues that you or we all economists should think about, and probably take the economic policies and economic strategies should be exerted and should be also developed in that line, and we need to convince the policymakers. So with that, opening remarks, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank once again, and let me start by saying something about the pandemic issues. The global pandemic is not a new phenomena at all for us. probably the world has seen tremendous changes, particularly for the past about 150 years or so, maybe after the first industrial revolution. And before that, if you look at the history, we have the pandemics keep coming from time to time. If you look at the Black Death, which was taking place somewhere around 1346 to 1357, almost more than 25% of the people got killed by that kind of Black Death disease. That time, our population was not even 1 billion people, ladies and gentlemen. Now, if you look at for the past 90 years down the line, also more than 50 to 100 million people killed by the different diseases and viruses. So meaning that we got the SARS, severe acute respiratory syndrome, H1N1 influenza. We got malaria. We got HIV/AIDS. We got several other problems, Ebola, and so on and so forth. So these pandemics are keep coming from time to time. And if you look at the history of Spanish flu, which was emerged probably a little more than 100 years ago, 1918 to 1920, about 2 to 3 years period, the Spanish flu infected more than 500 million people across the globe. So, which means that our population in 1918 was not even 2 billion actually, maybe about 1.7, 1.8 billion people. So our first 2 billion we experienced only in 1927. And the first billion we experienced in 1804. So you can imagine the dynamics. 500 million people got infected by the Spanish flu, which is by and large similar to the coronavirus that we are experiencing today. And that is one of the important issues I would like to touch upon. I also would like to mention here, ladies and gentlemen, that out of 500 million people, 50 million people got killed by the virus, by the Spanish flu alone, meaning that the World War I killed less than the Spanish flu itself. So by and large, World War I taken place 1814 to 1818, and immediately after World War I, the Spanish flu killed almost 50 million people. That's absolutely a greatest human catastrophe that the world has ever experienced. Now, looking into that, in between, we have been, for every 5-10 years down the line, we've been experiencing different types of diseases. Now, the coronavirus, as you all know, and Professor Dinesh ji was talking, and Professor Pramod ji was also sharing his views, that pandemic has started at Wuhan province of China, and the Wuhan province probably doesn't have a significant impact now. Probably it has some impact sometime in December and January last time this year. But now the challenge is that the coronavirus, as of today, it has infected about 58 million people across the globe. And out of 58 million people, although the recovery rate seems to be pretty higher, probably more than 40 million people got recovered, but still the challenge remains. About 17, 18 million people are still infected with the virus, and meaning that out of that 17, 18 million people, ladies and gentlemen, 100,000 of them are in a severe condition. So they are in ICU and severe conditions. So that's what we need to think about. If you look at the global statistics of pandemic, ladies and gentlemen, we have got America remains the largest country with the largest amount of infections, with more than 12.6 million people got infected in America alone. The second is about India. India has got more than 9.2 million people got infected. So in America, the virus killed plus minus about 34,000 people got killed. In India, 256 million people got killed. In India, we got 133,000 people, 133,000 people also got killed by the virus. Now the countries list goes on. We got, let's say, Brazil has got over 6 million, and France has got over 2 million, and we also got Russia got over 2 million. The list goes on. South Africa, where I'm sitting now, is having about 765,000 infections, and we got about close to 21,000 people died in the world. Sorry, in South Africa. So this is to give a snapshot view about the global pandemic. And the pandemic is not over. We've been reading the news from time to time that the vaccination is coming from Italy, from Russia, from USA, from India, from different parts of the world, but we didn't have a tangible vaccination yet. So now when we look at the personal protective equipments that we are talking about for the past 9 to 10 months time, the face masks we are talking about, ventilators we are talking about. We're also talking about the sanitizers. We're talking about hand washes and soaps, liquids, and social distancing. These are the important things we've been hearing on daily basis, on regular basis for the past 9 to 10 months. If you look at the ventilator story, ladies and gentlemen, ventilator costs about 50 to 52,000 US dollars on an average. Now, America has got 170,000 ventilators. In Africa, in total African continent, we got about 55 countries in the African continent, out of which 42 countries together, they have less than 2,000 ventilators. Imagine the situation. Meaning that we got 1.1 billion people in African continent. For that 1.1 billion people, we got less than 2,000 ventilators. Let me give you some more details about that African scenario. Now, ventilators, imagine the situation that ventilator costs only $52,000, but whereas the nuclear weapon, it costs much more than the ventilators, millions and sometimes billions of dollars it costs. Surprisingly, as of today, we have the world population 7.8 billions, and we used to have more than 70,000 nuclear weapons across the globe before the war, probably during the Cold War scenario. Now, out of that 70,000 nuclear weapons, we bring them down to about 13,500 nuclear weapons. So this 13,500 nuclear weapons can kill or can destroy this current Earth where we are living today more than 10 times, ladies and gentlemen. So the world leaders can able to develop a kind of nuclear technologies, nuclear weapons to destroy this current world more than 10 times, but they could not able to invest on the ventilators in order to attack or in order to face this kind of viruses. That's a sad story of the human, although we achieved so much in the health technologies for the past 5 decades, but what we did is on the defense technologies, we're spending more money, whereas on the health technologies, we are not spending more money. That's what I would like to mention. Now, there are so many countries, more than 10 countries in Africa, they don't even have single ventilator, for your surprise. Imagine South Sudan is the smallest baby in the world, which born about 9 years ago, 2011, it got independence. Now, South Sudan has got 5 vice presidents, whereas the number of ventilators, South Sudan has got only 4, ladies and gentlemen. You can imagine the dynamics there. Now, a country like Somalia doesn't even have a single ventilator. Country like what was the Central African Republic, it has got only 3 ventilators. Now, largely populated country like Nigeria, it doesn't even have 100 ventilators. So this is the scenario. Now, if we look at the world in general, largest economy like America doesn't have sufficient ventilators to face the current pandemic. So you can imagine the other countries' situations. So this is the pandemic scenario I would like to touch upon. Then I would like to take you to the economy, how the global economy looks like. According to last year's statistics, ladies and gentlemen, before the pandemic has started, the global income, the global economy looks like we have about $88 trillion economy across the globe. All the 230 countries in the world could able to contribute $188 trillion of the wealth. That is the total income of this world. Now, out of this 88 trillions, about 24.5% is coming from one country, that is America. So America contributes more than 21 trillion US dollars per annum to this global economy. China is contributing more than $14 trillion to the global economy. And now, when we look at the other side of the story, we got Japan used to be the second largest economy for many years. Now it is in the third position, about plus minus $7 trillion it contributes. Germany is the fourth, which has got about 4.2 trillion it contributes. India is the fifth largest economy. It contributes about $2.8 trillion. Now, imagine these top 10 countries in the world, top 10 economies, that is probably France, UK, Italy, Canada, Australia, all these top economies could able to contribute 75% of the total income of this world, ladies and gentlemen. Top 5 economies that I mentioned, they contribute about 50% of the total income of the world. Now, if you look at about 42 countries in this world, they contribute 90% of the total income of this world. So meaning that out of 230 countries, as I mentioned to you just now, they contribute less than 10% of the total income. That's absolutely pathetic situation. So 42 countries contribute 90% of the income, and remaining countries, 190 countries or so, they contribute together only 10% of the income of this world. That is absolutely a pathetic scenario. Now, the global economy is being developed in such a manner with high inequalities, high disparities. So the concentration of economic power is only in the hands of few countries in the world, which is not a good sign for the global sustainable economic development. You're all economists. We need to think about that. If we look at the scenarios, Africa could able to contribute about $1.1 trillion coming from only 3 countries. Imagine the scenario. 3 countries, largest economy is Nigeria, second largest economy is South Africa, and third largest economy is Egypt. So these 3 countries together could able to contribute $1.1 trillion to the global economy. Remaining 52 countries in Africa, they contribute insignificant amount of money, which you cannot even think about. Country like Singapore, which is such a small country in the world, probably some of the Indian districts are much bigger than Singapore itself. And Singapore contributes more than Pakistan contribution to the global economy, ladies and gentlemen. So 0.42% Singapore contributes, whereas Pakistan economy contributes 0.3%. So there is a difference of Pakistan and Singapore economy difference is about $100 billion difference, ladies and gentlemen. Singapore also contributes not only more than Pakistan economy, but also South African economy, surprisingly. So these are the variations that we need to look at, ladies and gentlemen. Now, many countries in the world, there are only 16 countries in the world, they contribute more than $1 trillion this global economy. So that includes Indonesia, Canada, and Australia, Mexico, and so on and so forth. So these are some of the Brazil. These are some of the economies. So just to understand how the global economy or the global outlook looks like. So now the disparities remains very high because of the fact that when we look at the debt on the other side of the coin, the global debt is $255 trillion, ladies and gentlemen. You can imagine the scenario. Our global income is 88 trillions. Our global debt is 255 trillions. There's no comparison, ladies and gentlemen. So meaning that if you look at the 255 trillions today and compare with the population of the world, which is 7.8 billions, every citizen living on this planet owes $32,500, ladies and gentlemen. So if you look at Indian scenario, or if you look at Pakistan scenario, or the China scenario, or maybe Thailand and Taiwan, or many other Asian and African countries, 90% of the people, we don't earn that $32,500, but we owe, directly or indirectly, we owe. That is our debt. Per capita debt is $32,500. One can imagine the scenario. I'm sure some of the professors sitting here, working in private sector, I'm sure they are not even earning $10,000 to $15,000 per annum. So the amount of money that you earn, the amount of money that you owe indirectly is probably more than double, ladies and gentlemen. That is the kind of situation that we are sitting with. Now, if you look at the other side of the coin, when we compare the poverty rates, the poverty destitution in the world that exists, 5 countries in the world, they contribute 50% of the total poverty of this world. And unfortunately, India, being the largest democratic country in the world, with 1.3 billion people, we are the one contributing about 24% of the global poverty, ladies and gentlemen. So the policy makers that have been sitting there with the power, and the advisors, and the economists, and many other technocrats, we need to think about this scenario, ladies and gentlemen. We are talking about vocal to local. We are talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat. We're talking about so many things for the past few months. But the challenge remains that we are the largest contributor of the poverty of this world. Almost 25% is coming from our nation alone, ladies and gentlemen. Now, who are the other 4 countries? Nigeria contributes 15%. DRC Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, contribute 7% of the global poverty. And 4% coming from Ethiopia and 3% coming from Bangladesh, our neighboring nation. So together, these 5 countries could contribute 50% of the total poverty of this world. We got 5 countries in the world. They are having 50% of the total wealth of the world, and we are having on the other side 5 countries in the world, they got 50% of the poverty. There is no comparison, ladies and gentlemen. The global leaders, they never ever think about this important issue, ladies and gentlemen. They've been thinking that America should be the country which should lead this world. America has been the developed country, is the richest country in the world for more than 150 years, ladies and gentlemen. Starting from 1871, America is the only country in the world which has been remained as the largest economy. But before that, who was the largest economy? If we question, we all know, ladies and gentlemen, you are all economists, prominent, scholars. India was the largest economy in the world. India used to contribute at one stage 40% of the total income of this world, and from 40% it plunged to 25%. So meaning that what America is contributing today, we were contributing probably about 200 years ago, the similar amount of 25% to the global economy. So from that 25% of the global contribution coming from India alone, now we remain with about little more than 3%. Now we are aiming to achieve, in the coming 5 years period, we are aiming to achieve $5 trillion, 5 trillion economy. That's what we are targeting. So this is the kind of scenario that we are sitting with, ladies and gentlemen. So the global economy, in a manner that is being developed, is absolutely unequal. It is only definitely a dangerous sign for the global economy and the global population, or the global environment, ladies and gentlemen. So we are building an economy, global economy, in such a manner, it is top heavy and bottom weak. If top heavy, bottom weak, that is not going to be sustainable. If you wanted to develop, America wanted to develop, or China wanted to develop, they have to lift the other small nations. As a matter of fact, ladies and gentlemen, no economy in the world, no country in the world is poor country. Only the people are poor because of the maladministration, because of the selfish political leaders. But otherwise, in terms of the natural resources, Liberia could produce probably one of the largest producer and exporter of diamonds, but Liberia remains as a poor country. DRC Congo has got so much resources, but unfortunately, more than 70% of the people living below poverty line in DRC Congo. So this is the world is created. It's not a good sign for us. It's not a good sign for us to grow in the coming 200 years' time, ladies and gentlemen. We could see A lot of terrorist attacks going on. A lot of corruption is going on. And there is no peace in the world. If there is no justice in the world, there is not going to be peace in the world. Because the way that the world economy is being developed in such a manner that it is completely unequal. So when it is completely unequal on one side, there is no peace that you can see. If there is no peace, and obviously there is no justice. Or there is no justice, there is no peace. So justice and peace, they go hand in hand. They are two sides of the same coin, ladies and gentlemen. So this is absolutely going to be a serious threat, more than the global pandemic that we are sitting with today. This is going to be a serious threat for us. The other important point I would like to mention here is that on an average, the death rate in the world per day, we used to experience before the global pandemic, for one single day, more than 150 people, 150,000 people, 150,000 people across the globe, they die in one single day. Now, the death rate of this pandemic is much lower than what it is normally in normal scenario. We don't need to be, panic about this scenario. Although the global pandemic could able to kill, the killing rate is less than 1%, whereas the Spanish flu killing rate was more than 10%. As I mentioned to you earlier, that out of 500 million people infected, more than 50 million people got killed. In South Africa alone, more than 100 years ago, close to 375,000 people were killed by the Spanish flu. So this is the kind of scenario, but we cannot take this lightly. We have to protect each other. Everyone, all the temples like Sai Baba temple in Shirdi, and maybe the Padmanabha Swami temple in Kerala, and Tirupati temple, Balaji temple in Andhra Pradesh, Chittoor district, they're all closed. These are the temple, or Amritsar Golden Temple, or say Gurudwara, has been closed. So meaning that we human beings, the doctors became the gods to protect the people, and you human beings, we are all human beings, we protect ourselves, we protect each other. So we are equal to God, actually, ladies and gentlemen. That is why we say Namaste. The Namaste is a sign of the divine in me is saluting the divine in you. So you're equal to a God, actually. So every one of us, we have the responsibility, we have the ability to protect from this kind of viruses. But with the way people are behaving now, as Professor Dinesh was mentioning, in Greater Noida, more than 100,000, 1 lakh people got infected in one single day. That can push India be the #1 country in the whole world, ladies and gentlemen, in no time. So the way that our people are behaving is not encouraging. The social distancing cannot be maintained in a largely densely populated country like India, where we got more than 420 people live in 1 square kilometer, ladies and gentlemen, whereas in South Africa, only 18 people live. In Russia, only 9 people live, ladies and gentlemen. In countries like Canada, Namibia, and Mongolia, there are only less than 2 people live for 1 square kilometer. If you look at some of the slum areas of Mumbai, over 2 lakh people, they live in 1 square kilometer, ladies and gentlemen. So where the social distancing can be maintained there? 2 lakh people in 1 square kilometer. So this is the kind of tragedy that we are sitting with, ladies and gentlemen. But the pandemic is not over. It is remain with us. It is going to remain with us for some time. But it is creating unprecedented and unphenomenal effect on our lives, on the economy and the environment. So for the past 9 months down the line, if you look at the businesses are greatly harmed. More than 70% of the businesses which are run informally across the globe, they are the badly affected businesses, ladies and gentlemen. So we need to support with some kind of credit to the businesses. There are lots of bailout packages that have been announced. Over $20 trillion bailout packages were announced across the globe, ladies and gentlemen. And India contributed almost probably 10% of its total income as a bailout package to support the people. So the list goes on. And in the interest of time, I don't know how much time that I have, but I would like to touch upon some of the issues pertaining to the global economies, how the global economy dynamics are being changing over a period of time. In 1950, when India got republic, 26th of January, probably 1950, and China got independence after us. We got independence on 15th of August, 1947, whereas China got sometimes in 1948. So if you look at the statistics, the economic statistics, the economy of China and economy of India, in 1950, we had more than what China has got. In 1970s, we are almost parallel to each other. In 1990, Chinese are just $16 billion ahead of us. So meaning that we have got $297 billion as our total income in 1990, whereas Chinese has got $313 billion. You can see only a difference of 16 billion. Now we remain today with 2.8 trillions, whereas they remain with more than $14.6 trillion. So this is the kind of scenario. So Chinese, who developed the Chinese? It is Indians who developed the Chinese, because we are the largest market for them, for their goods. The whole world market is one side, the Indian market is on the other side. We are the one who supported the Chinese. Ladies and gentlemen, for the past few months, we have been watching in the news, following the news regularly, that many businesses or Chinese applications are closed down. Over 60 applications have been closed down. But still, unfortunately, Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji was talking about vocal to local. It doesn't help, ladies and gentlemen. Every citizen of India, out of 1.3 or close to 1.4 billion people, we are going to exceed Chinese population in the coming few years' time. We will become the largest largest populated country in the world. But if we do not question ourselves, if we do not teach our children and grandchildren that we must stick strictly to our own local products, then nothing is going to change. So vocal to local is a slogan remains on the paper or in the mouths of the people, but in practice, no significant changes are occurred yet, ladies and gentlemen. So we need to act upon that. We're all educated people. We should take an oath that in such a manner that I'm not going to touch any other product other than my own country's product. Remember that, ladies and gentlemen, in 1950s, when Japan, after the World War II, Japanese products are the most inferior products in the world, ladies and gentlemen. If they produce a pencil or a pen, they used to break in no time. But Japanese people began to think that if we do not use our own products, who else can use our products? So they've been optimistic, they've been thinking, or they've been believing on themselves. Every Japanese person, irrespective of the status, a common man or a president or a minister or whoever they are, business people, they begin to honor their products. Continuously, with a lot of hard work, they could work tremendously towards the quality improvement. And then by 1970s, ladies and gentlemen, Japan became one of the largest industrial country, and Japanese products began to be honored the rest of the world. So that is the kind of lesson we need to learn from Japan, actually. And Japan remains as such a small country, resourceless country. They used to import a lot of minerals and a lot of natural resources from India, from Africa, from the rest of the world. They got nothing. They only got the population or people. They believe in their human capital more than the natural capital. of natural resources. So they could able to rise themselves from zero after World War II. Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed, killed more than 500,000 people closely, little boy and fat man. But since then, they worked very hard and they reached to the level that they are the second largest economy. Now they still remain the third largest economy. They established their reputation across the globe. Japanese means quality. If there is a television, if there is a phone that was produced by Chinese guys, Indian guys, Japanese guys, Taiwanese guys, or American guys, by closing our eyes, we prefer to buy Japanese products. 70 years down the line, 70 years back, that was not the case. So Japanese quality has been tremendously improved over a period of time. Now China, in 1997, just about 23 years ago, China was nowhere there in the top 20 or top 10 economies in the world, ladies and gentlemen. Just 23 years ago. But China aggressively, for the past 30 years or so, they worked very hard. It's not a child game, ladies and gentlemen. It is a continuous hard work. So Chinese people, China is the only country in the world lifted more than 700 million out of poverty. We need to appreciate China for that. And whereas we got, as I mentioned to you earlier, we got 24% of the poverty, or more than 300 million people were contributing for this global poverty. So we need to appreciate one side our neighboring country, our rival country, and we need to learn a lesson from them. So Singapore was nowhere in the world. In 1960s, Singapore is not known to the world. There's a lot of gangsterism, a lot of crime rate, a lot of slum areas in Singapore, such a small country in 1960s. So ladies and gentlemen, for the last 60 years down the line, what happened? The face of Singapore has completely changed. So meaning that Singapore, neither it has a large country, nor it has got tremendous amount of resources, no gold, no diamonds. But Singapore, they believed on three factors. Meritocracy, pragmatism, and honesty. So these are the three pillars take Singapore to the level where they reached and where they are standing today. So Singapore became one of the stars in the world with nowhere. The Singapore airport, many of you might have been to Singapore airport in 2008, 2009. While I was working in Papua New Guinea, I used to travel via Singapore. That was the time they opened a Changi airport. They expanded the Changi airport. If you look at Changi airport, ladies and gentlemen, you think that Singapore is the largest country in the whole world. The way they have developed the Changi airport is absolutely unphenomenal. And even Mumbai airport or Delhi airport or Bombay or Hyderabad airport, they're not even close to Changi airport. Or I was been in Germany, Frankfurt. I was in New York airport and a few other countries. And that is the small country. They could able to invest their resources on the Changi airports. And Changi airport receives large amount of passengers. So this is the kind of beauty. That is how they begin to believe what they have. They begin to believe in that. What they don't have, they didn't care. If you look at the resources, ladies and gentlemen, India is one country which has got, the second largely developed education sector in the world. We are the one who export human capital to the rest of the world, ladies and gentlemen. The Google CEO, Alphabet's CEO Sundar Pichai, born and brought up, studied in India. Satya Nadella, Microsoft, raised from Hyderabad. Indrani Nui, who was the former CEO of Pepsi Cola, was also studied and born and brought up in Chennai area. So the top 20 companies that you look at, most of the CEOs come from India. And if you look at the Harvard Business School, Nitin Vohra, who was the Bombay IIT from Mumbai. He was the first dean ever appointed for the Harvard Business School dean. The second dean who is going to take a charge from January next year is also from Indian origin. So the world is beginning to believe that Indians are the hardworking people, they are talented people. They are assigning the up-level positions and responsible positions to the Indians. But where India is standing today, Google alone contribute so much money to the global economy. Almost what India contribute to the global economy, Google can contribute almost half of that amount. So we do have a lot of potential, but sometimes because of our political system, because the way we designed, with the way we developed, the way we structured is not good for us, ladies and gentlemen. 1947, more than 73, 74 years, we got the independence. And we used to be the largest economy once upon a time. But still, we remain with lots of challenges. The credit goes to our politicians, ladies and gentlemen, who are highly corrupt, who are highly selfish, that they never cared about the people of India, ladies and gentlemen. If you look at, if we are talking about the economic growth rate, India is the fastest growing economy in the world by IMF in 1918, about 2-3 years ago. That doesn't make any sense, ladies and gentlemen. When the economic growth rate does not lift the common man out of poverty, out of destitution, economic growth rate doesn't make any sense, ladies and gentlemen. A common man who has to be benefited with that economic growth rate. So when we look at Chinese side, the story, as I mentioned just now, China at times they grow at the rate of 15% growth rate per annum. On an average, 11% growth rate they achieved for more than 2 decades, ladies and gentlemen. What is the outcome of that? They lifted 700 million people out of poverty. But why India cannot do that? Because we have too much freedom. We have too much democracy. As I mentioned that we got the largest democracy in the world, but there is no real democracy that exists in our country. Unfortunately, as Abraham Lincoln defined, democracy is of the people, by the people, and for the people. But more than 200 years ago, the form of democracy that we see not only in India, but rest of the world, it is of the people. There is no people's participation at all. It is buying the votes of the people, and it is far from the people. That is the kind of democracy that we create in India. That's not a good sign for us. So there are so many changes need to be done. We are all educated people. We are the second largely educated sector in the world, with more than 220 million people. We've been teaching, and they are taking part in the teaching and learning process. So, in the interest of time, I don't know, Dineshji, how much time I do have, but I would like to conclude by saying that there's so much differences, so much inequalities. Within India, India is the only country in the world which contribute millionaires in the world. And India is the second country in the world which has got the best land. Although we have only 3.2 million square kilometers, that is our area size. We are almost 1/3 of what China has got. China has got probably 9.3 or 9.4 million square kilometers. So meaning that we are 1/3 of Chinese size. But that is not enough, ladies and gentlemen. The amount of land that we have, the amount of resources that we have is much better than what China has got. Just because of the fact that China is a dictatorial or socialistic economy, whereas India has given a lot of freedom to the people. The over freedom made us more lazy. So we need to try to identify those kind of weaknesses, and the weaknesses should be converted as a strength, ladies and gentlemen. So with this few points, I'd like to thank once again the organizers of the webinar, 17th webinar, and the Indian Economic Association, particularly the office bearers, Honorable General Secretary Dinesh Kumar ji, and Professor Pramod Kumar ji, and our President and also other office bearers. And we also got some colleagues, Professor Chobeji, who was the former president of Indian Economic Association. And I met you, sir, in Gwalior, I think a few years ago. I still remember our association. I also see some of our old colleagues, Professor Ajay Kumar ji, and Indu ji. I met you, sir, and also Sudha ji and Professor Ramakrishna ji. There are so many other colleagues that are taking part in this webinar. I finally would like to thank once again the organizers for providing me this wonderful opportunity to share some of my views. If you got any questions or on maybe any clarifications, you're welcome to approach me. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Professor Ravindra sir, for discussing the various issues on global outlook. Many of the issues, I think, were not the general issue. They were the specific issues that needs to be discussed upon, needs to be worked upon, and during this pandemic issue, they are much more alarming. So you have discussed a number of issues related to global inequalities, social infrastructure, human infrastructure, and the issues on which the globe has been built, or the world has been created, that or is being created. You can say the top heavy and bottom, you can say, weak. There are a number of other issues you discussed. Before going to the further discussion, I would like to request Professor Pradeep Kumar Nath, sir, please comment on your side. I should say comment, just remark from your side, that would be better. Observations from Professor Pradeep Kumar Nath, sir. It's Pradeep Kumar Nath, sir, please point out some observations from your.
Many of the nuanced comments Inderji are really to be about. Here I would like to just quote a sentence from a book just I was going through of Arundhati, wherein she was commenting particularly the current book during the pandemic, which has come into publication. Just I'm reading two lines. Coronavirus has brought with it another more terrible understanding of Azadi, the pre-virus that has made nonsense of international borders, incarcerated whole populations, and brought the modern world to a halt like nothing else could ever. It casts a different light on the lives we have lived so far. This is the thing I would like to say. The lives we have lived so far, that means the human civilization that we know, with the historical and evidential jurisprudential kind of thinking of Occidental culture that we have learned. Evidential proof of history of human civilization and the trajectory that was so nicely commented upon by Ravindra Renaji. Here I would like to highlight only one or two aspects with first-hand information of Chinese village in the last decade that I have been associated with in a big project, particularly the classic village of Langbo of Hinton and the visit to western part of China in the last decade, many a times. Fortunately, in the context of a project that we have undertaken on behalf of Government of India and Government of China. I would like to say one thing. The kind of inhuman condition in which China has been producing products and circulating globally, challenging the global production scenario, can never be thought over. Let me tell you very clearly. Any visit by sheer chance, if you get the permission of Chinese government, whatever you can observe is shocking. With the 700 million people in the most inhuman condition, I would say It is sheer brute force of 700 million, which has flourished the international market now in terms of the small lights that you see during the Deepavali up to the firecrackers, whatever, wherever it is found, or the Durga idol, or the cheap Ganesha idols available now in Hyderabad, Pune, or Mumbai. With this structure of understanding, you can very easily think of 70 crores or 700 million labor force, almost like brute force of the Hobbesian world. If that is China, no point of arguing against the existence of human civilization at all. Let me be very clear. Because of the misinformation, wrong information, opaque information, all the things, had it not been so, we would not have received the news of Lee's death, the first person to inform about COVID virus and imprisoned, and now things have come up, the brutal treatment that he underwent. That is one part of the story. That is fine. Irrespective of the structure of economy or the understanding that we have in the last 200 to 300 years about economy, about colonization, about the pandemic, I would just highlight one issue. Perhaps to my mind, we have already shown the world what we have lived till date. Because this is completely a new world. What Madam was highlighting about vaccine nationalism and the equity about vaccine, it was highlighted just 10 days before, when more than half of the production line has been put up order by 4 to 5 countries. Even Canada going in for 10 dosage per person per capita, they have already booked. This is the kind of iniquitous world, 4 to 5 countries booking the half of the total vaccine that is expected to come in the market. So naturally, nearly 140 crore, that is 1400 million, plus nearly 1 billion population, these 240 crores people, India and Africa alone, are going to be the first victim of a vaccine discrimination, is well known to everyone. Necessarily, the pricing, the market condition in which we have started understanding economics since Adam Smithian world of 1776, post 1776, Smithian world of economics that we have been taught till now, 250 years. And previously, when you look back at culture, information dissemination, pre-industrial revolution, understanding of human civilization, when all things put together, perhaps economics understanding becomes too vast, and perhaps we have to start galvanizing, we have to start narrowing down in a new light. Perhaps in a new light, economics we have to understand, because discrimination is one, human rights is one, human versus the rest of the world, particularly the way marine resources or the climate change that has come, what Nardus and others argue. Behavioral aspect, what in a classic book like Misbehavior, Mr. Thiel talks about, all come together. Economics has become too vast to be narrowed down with black and white, as the most of the right or left government are thinking in these days now. Nothing is black and white. The vast spectral, millions of spectral view of human behavior, which are to be understood, what Abhijit talks about, each individual reacting in a different manner to the kind of information as he or she understands. As I understand the government's suggestion, government's carrot and stick policy towards me sitting in Gurgaon, where I'm staying. It is just behind Medanta. The two villages which are the hot pot in front of Medanta and behind Medanta, Islampur and Jharsa, where there is death spree for the last 6 months as I visualize. There is hardly a day passed by in the last 8 months when I have not heard Ram Nam Satya Hai, one body crossing my own house. In this pandemic situation, really, it is time to look back, think, and what Ravindra Rana has very nascently, very thoroughly elaborated the crux of the issue of pandemic, poverty, comparative statement of China and India, the cultural, governmental, structural difference, all comes to a new understanding, perhaps, I'm sure, because we have come over what Professor Chuge was saying earlier. This is not for the first time that human civilization has come across such a only thing, the extent of information dissemination is so fast that we are able to know, and by that knowledge we get many misinformation, wrong information, perverted information, purposive information. This is the main reason why we are so confused, sometimes wrongly taking wrong course of action. Perhaps this kind of seminar, this kind of discourse brings into light our own misunderstanding about our own behavior. I'm sure sanity will prevail amongst the right or left, centrist or the propagandist, whosoever may be, are taking decision on behalf of the people regarding the distribution of vaccine, regarding the marketing, regarding the future, because we by sheer chance happen to be the decision maker of world or global resources. Both Egypt, we are the conqueror, we are the owner of the entire flora and fauna that exists, and that is for our own sustainability. Perhaps the sanity will prevail. I am hopeful at least. And definitely some course of action, some sanity, some nascent view, some sense of conscience will beat the people, even if they are with market motive, trying to take the plunge of profit out of this pandemic. Also, that is also visible as we have seen. I'm sure deliberations like this will bring some sort of understanding amongst ourselves to behave more responsibly, to think more responsibly and more vividly, and more information packed, more unified, more holistic. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Professor Pradeep Kumar Nath Sahab, for this wonderful and really enlightening observations on the lectures delivered by Professor Ravindra Kumar Zena. Not to going much further, actually what I observe with the listening of the lecture given by Zena, that the overall development of different countries is, I think, we are much behind the human-centered. Either we may take the example of poverty, or we may take the example of, you can say, so-called employment or unemployment or inequality. It's a big issue that has been discussed by Professor Ina also. The issue is, I think, human who was going to be developed is left behind, and all the infrastructural development, that may be building infrastructure, that may be roads infrastructure, that may be all other infrastructures, that has been developed. But the development of human nature, human culture, what we can say, the human development, that is much more needed, and it is being well behind. When he discussed about the quality of Japanese product, what was in earlier days, 70 years back, and what is today, no doubt it is the public which have to come across. It is the human which have to come forward. But I think we have to make the long-term, very long-term planning, and those planning must not be failed. If failed, then generations failed. I think what has been happened, not to comment on that, but it is the best time, it is a peak time, then we can think seriously what can be done, not only at local level or national level, but at global level also, because we are discussing the global outlook. Now, I would like to request Professor P.K. Chaubey sir for his uh, final comment on the lecture. Sir, Professor P.K. Chaubey sir, our honorable former President of Indian Economic Association, Professor P.K. Chaubey sir. So please unmute.
Issues quite often. So I will, what should I do? I think this time I'd say a little beyond, what Professor Rana and Professor Nath has done. When I say little beyond means I am just putting a few footnotes. And last, even the, as I said, I shall be speaking on the optimistic note. So Dinesh Kumar has said on capability side, given the present methodology of UNDP, the rank of HDI of India continues to be the same for so many years. But the absolute number has increased from below 0.44 to beyond 0.64. So I think we tend to forget what we achieved, isn't it? So I think that point should also be considered somewhere. We have talked so much about the different dispensation different countries have. Suddenly comes to my mind, then why should we compare GDP if the countries are different? So differences should also be accommodated somewhere in GDP. If I am more contented, I don't require much high GDP. If you are, somebody talked of happiness and so on. I'm not happy with many of the methodologies. The World Happiness report may be doing. But nevertheless, this is one issue which I am posing before you. If you say China is much different, though I can put a footnote that actually that 1949, 1st October 1949, at 3 p.m. in Tiananmen Square, Mao declared that China is now People's Republic. China was already republic by 1912. This Sun Yat-sen, isn't it? He was the founder. China had already become a republic. A flawed, it was not subjugated the way India was, but it was also subjugated in terms of what you call actually they had the European colonies were there. The colonies means not colonization, in which the word is used for India. I think somebody objected to. Gandhi was one of those when he was talking of N.G. Rangareddy. Colonization is when there is a barren land and you colonize it. So it was America, or it was Australia, it was Canada. It was not India. India people lived. So anyway, it was sort of enslaved rather than colonized. When we talk of Piketty, the inequality the whole world, everywhere it is increasing, even in China, though it is much less unequal than India is. Or maybe India is much less unequal than America is. But the American, since 70s, Piketty has points out, and wealth inequality is always higher than income inequality. Income inequality is always higher than consumption inequality. So our consumption inequality, Gini, continues to be around 0.3 in rural area, 0.4 in urban area. But when it comes to wealth inequality, it reaches 0.6, 0.7. So that is one part. On whether we are a democracy and largest democracy, we say democracy in form or democracy in essence, Or China, I think we had two discourses, isn't it? They claim that they are republic, they claim that they are democracy, but we don't believe that they are democracy because they do not have multi-party system as Europe, promoted, and Europe considers that a system which has multi-party is a democracy. If I go by Jayaprakash Narayan, it is partyless democracy. So the conception, under Western conception of democracy, India and America both are flawed democracies. There are only 22 countries in Europe which are considered fully democratic by the economist, and they have an economic intelligence unit, and which calculates something, democracy index and so on. So there are only 22 countries in Europe, isn't it? And I don't believe that anything outside Europe, maybe Canada or Australia, but 22 countries only. And America is a flawed democracy. India is a flawed democracy. China comes under authoritarianism. So I think the comparisons are difficult, but this is how the comparison have been made. If you are talking of corruption, and which is the good governance and World Bank and all that, I think at one point of time that sociologist and economist Gunnar Myrdal talked of the soft state. So we might be soft state. I'm not a votary for corruption, but if, as you say, a lot of physical infrastructure has been developed, and that physical, if you say that corruption should be zero, perhaps the kind of psychology we have, or most of the people in the world have, there would have been no infrastructure development, because you take away only when you develop. So unfortunately, this is not good observation, but nevertheless, it is an observation which should be considered while you are actually finding out the fault. Because public policy making, we all believe that there are robots working, and actually our bureaucracy is not robots. Our politicians are not robots, isn't it? So they will work the way they do. Now, on Lincoln's definition, this is unfortunately all political science books have written in a way as if Abraham Lincoln has given a definition. So we are all prisoner of that. Actually, it was at the conclusion of the Civil War in America that Abraham Lincoln said that our what you call martyrism will not go in waste, and the country, isn't it, the democracy of the people, by the people, for the people will not perish from earth. So he is simply saying that America, which he thought at that point of time, isn't it, was of the people, for the people, by the people. And Gordon Tullock at later stage said that those days are over. Now it is BYE, by the people, FAR, for the people, isn't it? And OFF, of the people. So even in 1960s, when Gordon Tullock and James Buchanan are working this constitutional economics, they have this kind of opinion. They do not hold the same opinion about the same country which they had in 1863. And when Abraham Lincoln says he is speaking the language 4 years, 43 years ago, something like that, archaic language. That was actually Gettysburg Address, and he was addressing to the people who had fought the Civil War from his side with the forces of the Confederation, the army of the American Confederate, as the South American states had created. But nevertheless, Professor Rana, who was like me, or who is at the moment professor of management. I was for some time professor of management, but he does marketing quite well, which I do not do. I address to managers also when I'm in the management school, but I address, generally when I'm talking with the economist, I do not do it. Very good comparisons were made, isn't it? And where these people stay on. But you know that first it was suppose Britain, then it was America, now it is China. So this, I mean, these changes will keep on happening. And what do we aspire? We are the largest, as he said, that India is very fortunate to have such a fertile land, arable land, 30%, whereas America, China, they have 13%. Russia and Canada may be having 2% or 3%. So 3%, 13%, and your 33%, as we say, and that is to cadastral. If you go by remote sensing, they say it is 50%. So anyway, I mean, these details will keep on happening, and his understanding of the global scenario where all continents, I mean, he has done a great job. We confine to world a few economies, and India, isn't it, don't go beyond. But nevertheless, a comparison of India with Singapore, I mean, you should compare Bombay with Singapore. That was one reason that, yes, once they became part of Malaysia, then came out of Malaysia. So that story is different. And they, for example, if you take that export import divided by GDP, that will be far lower in US than Singapore. Singapore may be having 400, isn't it? Export plus import divided by GDP, 400%. Of course, GDP is on net basis, and whereas the export and import are on the gross basis and double counting. But in the case of UK, it is 40%. So India is somewhere here. But India is a large country like America. So there are such ratios, whatever way you define. And that is why some people said that if you have to define an open economy, you have to define in terms of rules rather than in terms of percentage. How open you are, how liberal you are to permit people. But then it is something like capability. And capability without performance. Suppose I am capable of swimming, but I don't have any pool. So my capability is good, but then I am not able to achieve it because there is no pool available, there is no pond available. I was in my village, isn't I could swim across, but in Noida there is no possibility. So capability is very important part, but then the commodities you cannot altogether ignore. I think when you are in a debate, you try to, I mean, even you concede within your head and within your heart the point of view of the other. When you start out, you try to demolish, isn't it, the other parts. So likewise, when we were in the beginning writing UNDP report of human development report, it was thought wise that we should overemphasize the capability part and forget about commodity part. And then, of course, one more that Dr. Rana has given a lot of illustration that about African economies and 3 countries, Nigeria, South Africa, and Egypt, and they contribute so much. And whereas there is a lot of part in America, that Africa, which is rich in resources, and they say poor by all other standards. Now there is something like resource curse. I think if you read the environmental economics, isn't it? Along with, we all know that there is something like resource curse. Jharkhand has more resources than UP, isn't it? Or Maharashtra may be having much less resources than, I mean, some other place, Chhattisgarh. But then what happens? And much of the GDP is accrued to the places where the headquarters of the company are, because they are reporting all those statistics there over. So partly because of this accounting problem, and partly the resource curse, except for the OPEC countries, the when they they made a cartel and they came to a monopolistic situation, only then I mean they could change their fate. So shall we say that if we are so crucial, because they were having a resource, only I mean oil, only one resource, and nothing else. I mean it's all barren land. Everything is barren, isn't it? They could do it because our technology the world over became dependent on oil. Now, if the technology changes, and hopefully in next 50 years, technology is going to drastically change. For example, in India, now we are converting our thermal plants or oil-based plant into gas-based plant. Gas, somehow the whole world, I mean, the more gas is available. And maybe we are now thinking of this and changing your 2-3% of nuclear power to 5-7%. So the whole composition of the energy use is changing. Energy usage will increase, but energy composition will change, and that will change perhaps the fate of certain countries. So I think I have just tried to add a few footnotes. I don't know, I'm not referring to COVID at all, because I do not relate, I mean, these long-term changes which we are interested in. That should be, we may be depressed for a while, there is a lot of recession, and if we take a very long view, talking of decades and centuries, isn't it? Then COVID will be a passe. And I will prefer, I mean, in that kind of scenario, to ignore COVID. When we are talking of monetary policy, fiscal policy, what government of India do right now, whatever the government of India does or doesn't, isn't it? In decades and in centuries, it won't matter much. It will matter, I mean, how capable we are. Government is only one part. Its policies influences, no doubt, but it's in GDP contribution is slimming and slimming. It is only the public administration which accounts for around 9-10% of the GDP. Rest of it is again 10-12%, isn't it? The rest of public sector. The rest of the economy is not in the public sector. Yes, we have created a government and its policies will influence the whole economy, but its direct participation will be in the days to come perhaps lower. Maybe at some point of time, because we are following America, so it will be a different kind of welfareism which Europe practices. So that is why we are going through market mediation. And suppose we are talking of now Ayushman, and we say that 5 lakh rupees, if you fall ill, it's not coming to you. Only that premium is going to the insurance companies. And there may be some manipulation here and there. I think rent seeking, Annie Kruger, hasn't created that phrase, rent seeking. So there is something like, you know full well that there is your wage earning, profit making, and rent seeking. So our bureaucrats are rent seekers, capitalists are profit makers, and the people like us, we are wage earners. So that she's will continue to hold the communist ideal, which is actually the principle of family, and where the family itself is breaking, isn't it? I don't know how long will it survive. That is the oldest institution, and perhaps it will survive for thousands of years, hopefully. But it's not that, I mean, joint kind of family where you care for your child, but you do not care for your brother. So, and that gets reflected in the very articulation of sustainable development. When you talk of your next generation, we react. And when you talk of equity, which means you talk of the same generation, the never across, you tend to ignore. So I don't know even why this sociological understanding, what is happening in our head, and how even this disintegration in our social fabric is taking place. So thank you very much for asking me to speak where I was not supposed to be doing so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor P.K. Chaubey, sir, for this giving this very heavy dose to all of us. Basically, it's a big work to do, not only with the scholars, but all of us also. Now, as we are already running too late, I request Honorary Dr. Sudha Subramaniam to please comment within 2 minutes. Please, Madam Dr. Sudha Subramaniam. Madam.
Thank you so much, Professor Dinesh Kumar, sir.
Please.
And it was really heartening to listen to Professor Dr. Ravinder Rana and Professor P.K. Chaubey and the amazing comments made by Sir Pradeep Kumar Nath. So it was a very invigorating session, very thought-provoking session, and we gained a lot of insight into several aspects of the global functioning with respect to country comparisons as well. And definitely we got an insight, you see, into the fact that India does have so much in terms of resources, and the perspective also could be in terms of, analyzing what we are speaking of in terms of empowerment, in terms of GDP. It's not just the figures that speak. You need to look at the basic grassroots level of consumption, and the entire pattern of how people are able to actually carry on with their lives and livelihood without just looking at the figures and how they are sort of evolving or being projected, because there could be a lot of lag in that. So it's not just that we need to glance through. But having said all that, there are a lot of things which have been happening in the world from a common man's perspective. Okay. So we had Alan Greenspan and the gold standard being done away with. And we did witness a lot of currency volatility. We did witness a lot of stock market volatility with the mutual funds, global mutual funds pulling out. And you had the markets vitiating the economic principle of being actually reflecting the economic efficiency of the country and just falling down like a pack of cards the moment the mutual funds pulled out. And you had all this happening over a time frame. And then we witnessed stability, currency stability. And of course, as far as gold is concerned, in spite of what some of our strong leaders have said about stopping the hoarding, we actually realize that there's a lot of gold loans, and vis-a-vis, considering this within the Indian economy is something quite specific, and also analyzing this in comparative terms with other countries of the world. And then when you see the intrinsic value of the currency, okay, so our intrinsic value has never appreciated much. But if you see, like Dr. Ravinder Rana spoke about Singapore, of course, Lee Kuan Yew and his amazing transformative leadership and the way Singapore economy works, right from the grassroots level of how they have the deposits for the child and how they have the proper planning in place, okay, which somewhere we are not having. But still, when you say that the intrinsic value of the Singapore dollar has risen a lot, and you draw country comparisons and you say that we are speaking of people capital here, we have a lot happening here, but where actually are we losing out? And where actually are we, sort of moving ahead in terms of forging ahead with proper planning? Because we just manage situations. That is what the common man's perspective is. It's all situational leadership. I mean, you have a situation and you just gear up for it, but it is not that you can predict a situation. It is not that you can handle well enough considering all your varied strata of population. And then, of course, we are speaking of, forget the 200 years of colonialism, forget the hour of glory and splendor before that. If you're planning to bring that back, 70 years of course through, okay, we have always lagged behind in the achievement of our plans. And now we are speaking of corporate governance and systemic failures which are impeding the governance. And we are even speaking of, legalizing corruption. So finally, at the end of the day, we have really, I mean to say, without proper planning, thrown everything to the winds, and somewhere things have gone wrong. So are we also speaking of economic systemic inefficiency? So we are speaking of economist planning and then plan to action, but economic systemic inefficiency is happening with respect to India because of the fact that it's not just inflation, it's core inflation, fine. So you have got answers for everything. But then at the end of the day, we are speaking in terms of, you see, like you said, it is livelihoods, okay? And that has been happening. So you have people dying of hunger and starvation. And like Dr. Ravindra Rana said, yes, the real wars the people of the world need to wage are the wars against hunger, poverty, right? And these are the wars. Whereas we are piling up defense arsenals and not even having sufficient planning or expenditure in terms of health infrastructure. So when are we going to sit back and with the proper perspective, move behind 5 steps and then leap forward? So somewhere we need to do that sort of, breaking that trap. I mean to say, it's fine, if Abhimanyu knew how to go into, and he didn't know how to break the, he did not know how to break the trap. Yes, the Chakravyu formation. So somewhere we have got everything in place to break that vicious trap, but still we are stuck inside the Chakravyu. And so so the common man is Abhimanyu stuck inside the Chakravyu. So then what are we going to do? And especially with respect to the gold standard gone, and you see the future of bullion markets. So this is a big question, sir, and the intrinsic value. And again, one more thing is now, in terms of the pandemic scenario, we are all moving towards a cashless economy. As we know now, HDFC Bank, okay, HDFC Bank systems are down since the last 2 days. And is our system geared to tackle all the extent of, the cashless happening and more in future, because we've got a terrific, pressure on the system. So how geared are we and how are we in place? Not just that, we're speaking of India as a country having so much of people, so many things to handle, and therefore the management, environment management, there are so many problems, but what about e-waste management? So in Mumbai itself, garbage disposal is becoming a colossal problem. And then if you have your e-waste management becoming a looming problem in the near future, so are we really preparing on these grounds? And this needs a lot of economic planning and efficiency.
Thank you, ma'am.
So these are some of the things I think should be analyzed and worked on from the economic standpoint.
Thank you, Madam Dr. Sudha Subramaniam, for discussing so much multi-dimensional aspect of the problem, multi-dimensional aspect of the issue. Basically, global outlook is having a number of dimensions, and each and every dimension is having the backward and forward linkages with the human. Ultimately, we stuck on human, and everything is being done and should be done and must be done for the human. If development is there and human development is not there, there are a number of problems. That may be the poverty, that may be inequality. There are a number of issues which have been discussed. But as far as it is to me, that this deliberation delivered by Professor Ravindra Rana and the discussion made by P.K. Nath, P.K. Chaubey, and including Madam Sudha Subramaniam, it was really a very heavy dose for the academic discussion, and it has given me a number of scopes to be discussed upon, to be deliberated upon, to be worked upon, and I am very, very sure that all the members, all the scholars who have listened this lecture, and they may also listen this lecture repeatedly because it's available on YouTube, that this lecture is definitely opening many scopes, basically from the different dimensions they can work upon. Now, to close the session, before closing the session, it's my duty to give a big vote of thanks to Professor Ravindra Rana. Professor Ravindra Rana is our regular supporter, regular contributor, our regular member of Indian Economic Association as well, I would like to give a big vote of thanks on behalf of Indian Economic Association as well as on my personal behalf for delivering this enlightenmentful lecture. With the request, I would like to say that the request was very short. Within 2-3 days back, I requested Professor Rena, and he was ready to deliver the lecture. Just in the interest of Indian Economic Association, we are really thankful to Professor Rena, sir. That's for you. I would like to thank Professor P.K. Chaubey, sir, the former president of Indian Economic Association. I would like to thank Professor Ghanshyam Singh, the president of Indian Economic Association in absentia. Professor P.K. Agrawal Sahab, Honorable Vice President of Indian Economic Association, Madam Dr. Indu Vashne, the Honorable Treasurer of Indian Economic Association, as well as Professor A.K. Tomar Sahab, the key authority, as well as the Chief Program Coordinator of Indian Economic Association. I would like to give thanks to Professor K.L. Bhatt, Managing Editor of Indian Economic Association, as well as the other authorities today contributed, Professor P.K. Nath, Professor Sudha Subramaniam, Professor Angel Singh Rana, Professor Pradeep Kumarji, Professor Dushyant Kumar, many other persons like you can say Dr. Sushma Saini, Dr. Ramratan Verma, Dr. Rakshi Solanki, Dr. Shobha Rena, Dr. Bhavna Chauhan, Dr. Hari Nand, Dr. M. Tirupati, Professor Pradeep Kumar, Dr. Renu Tyagi, A. Ansuya, Dr. Rupesh Tyagi, Dr. Sapna Jain, Dr. Shweta Gupta, Dr. Srinivasan Reddy, and a number of other names whose name I could not repeat here. Dr. Prem Singh, no doubt, Dr. Dolly Singh. I thanks to all of you. I thanks to Maltesh also. I thanks to all of you for promoting, cooperating, and I can say motivating me to work more. And I am doing what I can do. But it is a teamwork, and the team of executive committee members on the instructions given by the advisory board as well as other office bearers, we are doing our best to try to achieve the goals decided by our seniors. Now I would like to run the last GAN on virtual mode and request all of us to be silent as well as be standing on this issue on last GAN.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thanks to all. Special thanks to Professor Rena, Professor Chaubey sir, Professor A.K. Tomar Sahab, Dr. Sudha Madam, Dr. Indu Vashne ji, P.K. Nath Sahab, all the EC members, Pradeep ji, Angel ji, Dushyant bhai, Maltesh ji, Dolly. Initially, Professor G.M. Dubey was also joining. Thanks to all. It's from my side. I think we should close the session. Thank you all, sir. Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks to all. Very namaskar.
Namaskar, sir.
Namaskar, namaskar. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dinesh ji. Thank you, one and all.
Okay,
Bye for
sir.
now from South Africa.
Sure, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.